Everything in crashing down. Deuce Bigalow.
Alright, well, just leave money on the coffee table and we can just don't fucking blow up the house. Oh, and David, by the way, dinner tonight is coal on a bun.
Sick. Coal on a bun.
Oh, great Babzinky.
What next project of sophistication should I provide next?
Tell me.
By God, I knew it!
What in name have I gotten myself into? Alright, so last year I reviewed Little Nicky. This movie that I'm reviewing is a Madison Productions film, and we know how this is gonna turn out. See, Rob Schneider was by far a comedian that existed. His sense of comedy was rich in styles of immaturity. Madison Productions was also not really foreign to such a style. Slapstick gags such as nutshots, flatulence, profanity, stereotypes, all have been abundant in these movies. However, these elements were not the only types of comedy that existed in these movies. Rob Schneider can be considered funny for his impersonations,
Keep Pop Anonymous?
sense of delivery,
Damn you! You gave him the easy one!
cringe comedy, and anti-humor.
Private Garrett!
But what about his writing? Well, the 1999 movie Deuce Bigalow was written completely by Schneider, out of a whim.
So I was reading, and he's laughing out loud, hysterically, and I'm like,
Adam Sandler adored
He's
his
the first
script,
guy.
and the movie would soon become a box office success. But as seen in my Little Nicky review, a lot of those early 2000s comedies become stale over time, as the stimuli of a fart noise becomes normalized. Deuce Bigalow was one of my first comedies, truly a classic in the eyes of many.
And then I'll produce it. And I went like, wow, did my life just change right now?
This project is looking to be a bit longer than usual, but trust me, there's something about this movie that flaws it completely. But wait, before you proceed any further, Rob Schneider's goal was to write his character as a complete loser.
And I said, if I could just be like the most low-level, like, guy, and I'm trying to think of what could it be like, and if a guy who's like, cleans fish tanks, and that's his thing, and like a nerdy kind of guy that like is really good with fish, but not with people, and it seemed like a simple enough idea.
I mean, he achieved this probably a little bit too successfully. Unfortunately, with this being his first written project, there are a lot of flaws to his script. So let's finally relish ourselves with the wonder that is a Rob Schneider movie. Alright guys, this is the 1999 classic, Deuce Bigalow. Within the very first moment of the movie, we see a naked Rob Schneider as Deuce Bigalow. Deuce was caught cleaning a fish tank naked.
Swim trunks are loaded with detergents and other hazardous chemicals that can be harmful to fish.
Deuce is just misunderstood. He's really a nice guy. He also kind of looks like a weeaboo minus the anime part, but let's talk about the fact that Deuce makes a stop at the fish store and begins conversating with
Hi, Allison.
Allison. Oh, you want to know what that effect is, huh? Well, I thought that since this is a comedy and comedies aren't supposed to be taken seriously, I concluded that it would be for everyone's best interest that I rank the characters from most powerful and good to evil. You can thank me later. He asked for Allison to grab the sea snails on the bottom of the tank. As we can all see, Deuce is a man of class. Deuce found a flyer for a quest out into the suburbs to treat a koi pond. Upon arrival to the location, he makes eye contact with Antonio. Antonio then attends a meeting, if you know what I mean. Also, what kind of rich complex would have such thin walls? And you want to know why? Because the gag that they give is a complete joke, and it's supposed to be funny. Anyway, Antonio and Deuce finally interact after a mongrel koi fish gag.
There's a mongrel koi in there. It's the most dangerous of all goldfish.
Deuce becomes awed at the custom fish tank that carried exotic species, one being a Chinese lionfish. Antonio
That's an $800 fish.
Try Graham.
Well, then you overpaid.
Antonio praises his career choice as a gigolo, or in this film's terms, a man whore. A day later, Anthony requests for Deuce's advice, as his lionfish fell ill. Upon investigation, Deuce's nerd studies paid off as he discovered a gill disorder. The species will require 48-hour surveillance, but Antonio has to work in Switzerland.
I'll be gone for 3 weeks.
And with a recollection, Antonio insists that Deuce should watch his place. Antonio's power level is absurd. He owns a collection of rare medieval weapons, for God's sakes.
I collect Canadian quarters. I got about 6 of them.
Antonio is paranoid over Deuce since he knows nothing about him, and come on, Deuce is a creep. Deuce's quests agree to the clause that he would not use his car and answer his phone.
Big beach party's out of the question.
Deuce then starts relaxing at Antonio's as he's away for the season.
Women pay me to give them pleasure.
I gotta skip over this part because Deuce fumbles the remotes to the ground and it turns on porn and it's supposed to be funny. It's a little embarrassing, I guess, but like, anyway, I'm just gonna hop over that scene and forget about it, but in case you guys are wondering, here's the Cookie Girl stats. With a rush of enjoyment, the naive Deuce decides to try out Antonio's lift-up machine while putting a grilled cheese in the toaster. And as you can see, the tank broke, and ironically, all the fish are at risk.
$1,000? I know. It sucks. You may not want to blow your whole wad on this tank. I would. I'm up to my bicep in it, if you know what I mean. I'm not trying to flip you over and do you dry here.
That night, Deuce stood, defeated. His stupidity really got him somewhere, huh? The phone rings and Deuce answers it, breaking the first rule. It was a woman requesting services as a German tourist. That scene is actually super awkward, so we'll just like fast forward, there we go, and my microphone's about to fall. Holy shit. I'm gonna move it. Hopefully that will work. So as you can see, he got $10 for a unsuccessful job. Yeah! But Deuce is all dressed up, so might as well head over to the bar for a drink and maybe for some work. Celebrates with a martini with 2 olives. After the realization of the stiff price of $8, Rob asks for a cup of cranberry juice. The price raises to $11.50.
Well, perhaps you misunderstood me. I wish to cancel my original order of the martini and 2 olives and go for just the plain cranberry juice by itself for the $3. And I apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused you.
The interaction with the bartender puts him at the 4th most powerful character. With his fearless grin and his sturdy straw, the bartender is absolutely powerful as hell. So now Deuce walks up to Claire, and they awkwardly interact.
Kind of celebrating tonight. A possible career change. I'm pretty excited about it.
They head back to Antonio's wet-ass apartment.
The carpet.
Oh, it's one of those 18th century wet rugs.
Deuce then asks Claire for $10 as his going rate, but Claire too was a prostitute. They battled and Claire easily defeats Deuce, but ultimately fled upon discovering that the apartment's owner was Antoine.
Please. Don't tell him about the shoes, huh?
Later on, Deuce is met with TJ Hicks. TJ Hicks is Claire's pimp, who is played by Eddie Griffin. And I mean, honestly, I gotta be honest with you guys, Eddie Griffin's performance was probably the funniest in the film.
See this ring? Topaz. That's my mother's birthstone. Got that from Manhorn. See this keychain? That's right. Mini yo-yo. Know I got the money for that?
Manhorn?
Stock market.
The scenes sometimes surprise me with an audio-video sync that is highly satisfying. TJ Hicks uses a fish metaphor to lure Deuce into the world of being a gigolo, and then there's a montage of Deuce getting a makeover as well as a wax job. And now, the man's ready for action.
Alright, now look. Just because I'm reviewing a Rob Schneider movie does not give you the authority to turn me into Rob Schneider. That'd be a bad time, man. Shit. Well, if that's the case, might as well prepare.
His first date is with Fuisha. Fuisha was played by radio host Big Boy.
You ever thrown a toothpick into a volcano?
It's entertaining, but Deuce's actions confuse me. Instead of doing his job as being a man whore, he decides to lie to Fuisha.
Look, I'm gay.
How gay are you?
And manipulate her to believe that she called the very gay escort service.
Oh shit. See, sometimes my fingers swell up and I can't cleanly hit the number.
Regardless, Deuce and Fuisha spend their night playing the game Cakes and Pies. Deuce scored a remarkable tip for his good time. But Deuce, however, still feels guilty. He doesn't know how his dad would feel about him doing this whole man whore stuff. So he went to his place in the men's bathroom as Bob Bigelow is the attendant right there. I will say Richard, why can't I say this? It's so easy. Relay. My man, the double R's performance was top notch.
Well, son, looks like I've got some work to do.
Deuce then goes on his second date, Tina. Tina is a Norwegian mall security worker with a pituitary gland disorder. As Deuce and Tina walk, they hear shrieks of, "Freak? Hey, keep it in the circus," and "That's a huge bitch," all done by these 3 voice actors. Or maybe 4. Deuce talks very nice to her.
You should be able to go on all the rides.
And rubs her feet at the end of the date. Moving on, we got, oh yeah, there's Detective Chuck. Now this is a man that exists, people. He confronts Deuce and tells him that he has been investigating for months and demands to see TJ Hicks' black book. He tends to whip out his dick and complain that it's too small. Every scene expresses Chuck as extremely frustrated in a topical, exaggerated manner.
Well, let me tell you something, mister. I could sleep at night because I make a decent, God-fearing, honest living.
I'm sure you do.
Remember that episode of Boondocks when Huey Freeman was being approached by a government agent and it wasn't really clear if he was a human being or a figment of Huey's imagination? Well, oddly enough, this kind of reminds me of that, which makes me suspicious about Deuce's mental state. He gets naked in public aquariums, he lewds over wet boobs, he refuses to have sex with these women because they have problems. In 40 minutes and 39 seconds in, Deuce tells TJ,
"What's wrong with this one? Nothing."
But can we just quickly tangent to the TJ's glory as the funniest out of everyone in the movie because he eats a tomato that was in the hot tub? And just like, that's the greatest scene in this comedy. Alright, so his next date is with Ruth. Ruth is played by Tina Fey. So Ruth has Tourette's syndrome, where she shouts random profanic terms. Oh my god, this character is really offensive as shit. If I had to use the lines that were given on the script, Tina Fey would be my best option. Ruth is depressed because she feels her disorder is getting in the way of her being accepted in society, but Deuce got a brain blast to take Ruth over to a baseball game that was conveniently happening that day. Deuce encouraged Ruth to shriek at the enemy team. The crowd then applauded and cheered for Ruth's shrieks, as it represented their inner impulses inside. Now we have the love interest. Remember my little Nicky review? I said every Adam Sandler movie has a love interest. Well, Rob Schneider was clearly inspired to do the same. So thus we are brought to Kate. Kate is by far the most good out of all the characters ranked. Her character consistently glows joy in all things wholesome. Deuce's character is shocked and awed by Kate's beauty.
So Sally and Megan didn't tell me a lot about you.
Who? They didn't say you were so perfect.
I mean, he chooses not to tell Kate that his date was paid for by her friends. His empathy for fish is supposed to be honorable when he discovers a fish being prepared by the chef. Katie then spoke a little Japanese, and then the chef refrained. They then took their date out to the docks, where a few innuendo lines later, they save the murdered fish. Deuce is apprehended by Detective Chuck. Chuck accuses Deuce with sleeping with Kate. Deuce plays it off because, I mean, really, he didn't sleep with Kate. Okay, so in my G4 review, I gagged the scene where TJ Hicks has the ice cream cone in his hand.
There's been this detective following me.
Deuce is anxious about his interactions with Detective Chuck, said Eddie Griffin, then drops the ice cream cone several times and continues to enjoy it. Deuce's next date is with a girl named Carol. Carol is diagnosed as narcoleptic. I actually forgot to rank Carol. Carol would probably be one of the more least powerful characters because her sleeping modifier is just kind of out of her control. She's also offensive to people that are narcoleptic, so I count that as a debuff. Then Kate and Deuce go on a walk on the beach, and upon the sight of a man entering a porta potty, Deuce recalls it's his father's birthday. Kate pitches that they should both stop by and say happy birthday. Deuce reluctantly agrees. Deuce introduced Kate to Bob Bigalow. Bob is overwhelmingly delighted to meet Kate. However...
So could you get in there, Bob? I mean, I got a party at 10 coming in, and I am up to my ankles in human crap. It's a real stink fest back there.
Bob's true identity is discovered.
My dad's not even a waiter. He's the men's room attendant.
Kate deadass looks like fucking Lisa from The Room, guys. If Deuce was a teenager, his lying actions would be understandable. However, he is so socially inept, he ignores the value of trust altogether. Kate forgives Deuce and mentions...
You know what my dad does? He's an aeronautical engineer.
Kate enters the workstation of Bob Bigalow as he is declogging a company asset. No gloves, as unneeded by Bob to get the job done. Kate then enters and offers a cupcake to Bob. Bob then digs into the pastry with his fresh hands. That night, Kate and Deuce started making out. Dude, does anyone really want to see Rob Schneider getting freaky like this? It's very uncomforting. Deuce pulled the fan light and it broke, so he got it Cher, and Kate was like,
You are good.
dude, what the fuck? He just got a chair and took no responsibility in fixing the string that broke.
Yo, Zach, dinner's ready.
Chair sandwich again? I thought we were gonna have coal on a bun.
I need you to be okay with something.
I'm okay with everything. I mean, nothing on your body that I wouldn't like. What are you talking about?
So Kate's leg fell off. But to see this next scene immediately after is where I'm like, what Viewer's discretion advised. So Deuce then discusses his relationship with Kate's friends. Naturally, they reject Deuce's mentality. He is a prostitute.
And it's man whore. She's perfect. She's kind, she's sweet, she's funny, and she likes me.
Very descriptive, Deuce. Deuce is then apprehended once again by Detective Chuck. He whips out his dick once again. Moves on to the next scene where Deuce knocks on Kate's door and she's crying. See, Kate wasn't mad that Deuce was a man whore. She was mad that he didn't tell her the truth in the first place. And now Deuce is sad, and he has given up on his whole man whore dream. Hello? And as we know by now, Antonio is super mistrustful about Deuce. Broke the only two rules he gave him. Deuce's deadline is close, and he needs money fast. Antonio's phone rang, and it was Elaine.
Same price, same place.
Elaine is requesting services. Deuce is basically saying, hey, this isn't the hot stud you're looking for, and I'm nowhere near the same quality, but maybe we can fuck. This scene is by far the most awkward. Every shirtless Rob Schneider scene is awkward. It makes me feel like I'm living. And for some reason, Rob Schneider's romance skill soars in this scene. Deuce is sophisticated. He doesn't want to mingle with Elaine because she isn't Kate.
Hang in there. Things have a way of working out.
Yes, Rob Schneider is the hottest man on the planet.
Well, she's the lucky girl. At least emotionally.
But Deuce finds out as her wallet falls open to reveal that she is the wife of Detective Chuck. Elaine and Deuce exit the hotel and Kate bumps into Deuce. And she just wanted to see it herself. But how the fuck did she find out? She never even met TJ, and I'm pretty sure her friends wouldn't know shit. The next day, Detective Chuck rages towards Deuce.
What? How's Elaine?
Chuck freaks out on Deuce, but Deuce offers him some advice.
It's that most women are as unhappy with their entire body as you are with your small penis.
And they then all have a one-night stand. Like, you can't tell me that there was no sex. This movie's definitely gonna have to have an age restriction. I'm sorry, guys. Thankful for saving his marriage, Chuck tries to give Deuce off the hook.
Boss says somebody's got to be arrested.
Deuce must give up TJ Hicks or he will stand trial. The next scene is the trial scene. So what happened in between those two scenes? I don't think any trial would ever happen that quickly. It just doesn't feel like that all this entire time span took place in 3 weeks. And this scene is most certainly a very interesting one. Clients Tina, Ruth, and Felicia, all three testify against the state with their usual quirks, I guess.
Behemoth?
Sex with anyone?
Yes, Your Honor. Just one woman. And I'm in love with her.
Order.
But when the judge asks if she paid him...
No.
Case dismissed.
In order to receive recollection, Deuce signs up for Dr. Rosenblatt's hair transplant surgery. He does this in order to meet Kate, who is the doctor's assistant. So Deuce is now in a state of sedation.
Listen, those shots hurt like hell. Could you at least hear me out?
He apologizes to Kate, informing her that he lied to her because he was scared. He then reads her an awful poem.
Kate, you have a smile that could melt an iceberg. Your lips are as sweet as honey. You may only have one leg, but it's the most beautiful leg in the world.
There's just no way a woman would cry over that sympathetic garbage, dude. Alright, so we're on the last scene of the movie. I'm in my closet and I'm sweating. Most of Deuce's friends all help him clean and putting the fish back into the tank. However, Kate's blind sister, that I didn't mention until now, blended the rare fish into oblivion. Thus, another montage to Deuce running to the fish store. He scurries over to the fish shop and requests for the lionfish to Allison. They make the transaction.
Anything else?
On second thought, you better give me some of those sea snails.
Deuce made it exactly on time, I guess. And Antonio enters with plenty of suspicion. Antonio stalks the area, looking for errors. He mentions the blended up lionfish.
Chocolate margarita?
It was more like a welcome home thing, really.
Spicy.
And he approaches the fish tank in awe.
My fish. It looks smaller.
Sometimes when they're sick, they'll shrink.
And bangs on the glass. To say hi to the fish. The glass cracks and pours out into the living room. Deuce then says,
I did man whore for a little bit, but none of your clients.
And Antonio charges Deuce. The only reason that Antonio lost that battle was with the help of Felicia and her very strong defense buff. Antonio then becomes arrested. I want to mention to you guys that TJ Hicks is in the same room as Detective Chuck, but that shouldn't matter, I guess, because the movie's ending right now and there's title cards that's showing where the cast went. Same thing that happened in the Little Nicky review, but this time it's a little bit funnier. Here are the issues I have with this movie. I know Rob Schneider wanted the moral of the movie to be that no matter how much of a loser you are, you can still be loved if you're really nice and kind. But this philosophy stretches the persona to adore Deuce's character almost unnaturally. With this being seen as a comedy, Schneider almost uses that as a reason to create a fake, funnier universe. But this fake created world makes those morals less impactful. Instead, we are given the world where Deuce does a few nice things that are supposed to cover up the fact that he's a complete self-centered loser. My main anger sources with the character Allison. Allison is the character that literally only exists so we can see her nipples. Even being in the biggest hurry of his life, Deuce chooses to Google eye Allison one last time before departure. Mind, this is after resolving things with Kate. Slipping that extra joke really destroys the illusion that Deuce is misunderstood and he is morally good. The movie's perspective of people with disorders add an unwelcoming stereotypical twist to gag out jokes that are offensive and nothing like women with those disorders. You can make jokes out of anything that's funny as long as it has an actual representation of what it's parodying and it's not stereotyping. The writing in this movie was done almost completely by Rob Schneider himself. This being a comedy, the writing is just as important as any other movie. A comedy doesn't have to make sense, Airplane being a good example. However, Schneider's writing style is very minimal and dependent on the characters performing. With that being said, the cast of this movie is what made this movie watchable and even sometimes chuckling. The performances of the cast shines potentially funny jokes out of an unfunny script. But there's something more to this. Deuce's character is a loner. The beginning of this movie, he had no friends. He lived in a poor neighborhood and is only knowledgeable about fish. Deuce's character perceives others as exaggerated because those exaggerations are happening within his own consciousness. We see when Deuce receives $10, he knew he didn't give the woman a good time, yet he still chose to congratulate himself to the bar. When Deuce meets Antonio, he experiences the sex sounds coming through the walls of the room. However, we see that the apartment's layout and appearance would not properly explain those sounds.
I feel like I could just go around for a while.
Every kid needs a father.
Deuce then assists Antonio, and we learn about his career. Deuce then dreams of what it would be like to be a man whore. He then breaks the fish tank out of his own stupidity. Deuce was at his lowest point in life in that movie. He cleans fish tanks and makes crumbs. His only knowledge is of one thing: fish. Deuce destroying the fish tank was his biggest defeat of all time. He spent that night depressed, destroyed because he failed to do the one thing he had a passion for. Deuce is consumed by a need to be laid, and he would do anything to fill that void. But when he learns about the issues of his dates, he chooses to see these women as incapable to satisfying his needs. He then meets Kate. Kate is everything Deuce could have ever wanted in a girl. How could Kate be so perfect? Because Deuce saw this as a way to avoid responsibility and to satisfy that void. See, that night at the sushi bar, the woman at the table didn't even notice Deuce. That's because him nor Kate actually had a date at night. It was all inside the head of Deuce Bigalow. He is simply sitting there in Antonio's apartment, pretending to have been with Kate, mouthing the words and lines of his little princess as he stood there rotting inside, waving all frustrations to finally be loved. Whether it was inside his head or not, Deuce then purchased the leg of Kate, and it honored it as his new life. And that takes you to the next movie. Who knew such a beautiful masterpiece would just be another entry to the Uncle and Bayard archive? Later, guys.